Welcome to the Guelph Real Estate Report podcast with your host and Guelph realtor, Ryan Waller. This podcast is designed to provide information for those buying and selling homes in the Guelph area to make the process more informative, fun, and a little less stressful. Now, on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Guelph Real Estate Report podcast. This is episode number 27. My name is Ryan Waller, and I work in Guelph Real Estate with my wife, Beth. There is snow on the ground here in Guelph, and when there's snow on the ground, it means real estate sales slow down. And here we are into December. Probably, I'm going to say actually, it is the slowest month of the year. No doubt about it. And after the 15th of December, sales really slow down all the way into January 1st, where suddenly it picks up again. We'll look a little bit into the future today, but mainly we're going to talk about what happened in November in Guelph real estate. And November this year was, well, it was okay. It was a standard November month that you would expect to find in real estate. In fact, it's sort of reassuring to see that the volumes were stable into the end of November. Of course, you can find this information a little more in depth on our website, bethandryan.ca. There's a blog that we update every 2 weeks that goes along with this podcast, and there is a video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel that does obviously a video version of this. And you may ask, Ryan, why do you do 3 different versions of this? And the reason is because a lot of the clients that we have, or the way people consume media, are different from each other. And so we do get a lot of traffic off the internet for our blog. YouTube is often now used as a search engine for any number of things, including Guelph real estate. And there is, as far as I know, no other consistent podcast out there on the Guelph real estate market. So driving your car, you need something to listen to for 10 minutes or so. You can catch up on everything Guelph real estate because we do it typically within a week of the middle of the month or the end of the month. Okay, so into November. If you take a look at the number of sales that happened in November 2025 and just compare it to 2024, it doesn't look all that great. It shows up as minus 22%. But if you go back a little bit further into 2023 and 2022, the numbers are pretty good. 2024 had a big November. It was it's not really fair to compare it month over month and just look at that as the sole measure. 2023 was also a terrible month in November. So, to sell 125 houses, which is what we sold in November, not bad at all. That works out to be about 4 houses per day. And it's a respectable number. Nothing significant, nothing worrisome, a respectable 4 per day. Once we get into December, people start canceling their listings. They're on the market until now, early December, and decide that it's just not worth it. They want to put up their Christmas tree. They don't want to have to keep their house clean all the time. And they say, we'll come back in the spring. And what you start to see is a decline in listings. And those who may want to sell are choosing to wait until the new year to do that. And I'll get into a little bit about what I think might happen in the new year. But as far as December rolls around, we're currently sitting at 452 houses on the market. Just 2 weeks ago, this number was at 505. So we've had a 10% decrease in listings on the market in just 2 weeks. This is, as I mentioned, some are selling, but mostly it's because people are starting to either pull their listings from the market or just going to relist in the spring. 238 of the properties are condos. That was 252 just 2 weeks ago. And 214, which was 253 just 2 weeks ago, in the detached segment. So there is a larger decline in the detached segment coming off the market. It's a net decrease of 53. And we anticipate by the end of the year, we're probably going to end up at about 400 listings on the market when more sales hit through December and people start to cancel as we get closer to Christmas. 400 is the number that I anticipate. Now, for some context, in January 2022, there was a week where we had about 50 listings on the market, and we are likely going to hit in January of 2026 400. So an 8-fold increase in the number of listings available between January 2026 and January 2022. So if you remember back to January 2022, certainly I do, January, February, and March of that year were crazy. It was the ultimate high ever in Guelph real estate and most of Canadian real estate. And it was because there was a lack of supply. And so this problem of lack of supply is definitely not going to be a problem in January of 2026. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. We are sitting in a balanced market. If you just simply take the number of houses that are available and divide it by the trend of the last 3 months, we're in a situation where we have 3.25 months inventory available, and anything less than 2 is a seller's market. Between 2 and 6 is a balanced market, and above 6 is a buyer's market. So at 3.25, we are sitting in a balanced market. However, it's low simply because people are canceling. So I suspect that we're going to fall more into a 4 months of inventory or higher into January. So 125 sales, 32 were condos, 93 were detached. So let's get into a little bit more about each of those segments. In the condo segment, there were 30 days in November, 32 sales. Obviously, the math is about just over 1 per day. This was at 1.6 per day. They were moving a lot quicker in the summer, so it's really slowed down. And the number of listings has actually increased very slightly. There were 237 condos available in July. Here we are in December. There are now 238. So the actual number of condos has gone up in 6 months, not down. And less are selling per day. So of that, of the 32, there was a low purchase price of $330,000 in Dovercliff. I believe it was on Conroy Crescent. There was a high of $1.49 million in Manor Park, which is an exclusive little area off of Edinburgh Road. Overall average was $578,000, which is getting us much closer to the 600 that we were bouncing around earlier in the year. However, if you take out that one sale at $1.49 million, the number drops to $548,000 immediately. So yes, it's being propped up by that one sale, but that's how numbers work. So 548 if you take out the Manor Park sale, 578 with it. We anticipate we're going to see more condos hit the market. We anticipate that in January, we're going to be flooded with more. So we'll keep an eye on that. 238 is the number we're at now on the market. We'll take a look at that in the new year and see what happens into the first week of January. None of the units that sold of the 32 sold over the asking. 6 of them sold at the asking, and the remaining 26 sold under the asking price. If you're a buyer in this segment, it is a perfect time. Might get better for you, but right now is better than it has been in years. It continues to get better because every time I come on here and talk about the condo segment, it seems to be getting better and better for buyers. So the end of the year is going to be an interesting time to see where we land. If we move into the detached segment, 93 sales, $530,000 was the low. That was in the ward. $1,550,000 was the high. I believe that was on Zadok. And the overall average was $794,000. And for the first time in a while, this is below $800,000. And part of that is because there's a lack of houses selling over $1 million. And typically, for years and years now, 15 to 20% of the sales on any given month in Guelph, on average, are over $1 million. Sometimes in the summer or even in the spring of this year, we saw higher than 20%. October sales came in at 17%, and November sales, where is my number here? November sales came in at 7% of the sales at $1 million plus. So low number, and it seems to be flattening out there. So of course that impacts the overall average. As I mentioned, 794,000 was the average for November. 8 of the 93 sold over the asking, 5 at the asking, and 80, the remaining 86%, sold under the asking price. So it's interesting to see that because, I think that we saw a broad decline in October. We're going to keep an eye on that. And then early November, it was really low average prices because everything that was selling was below 800. They tend to move quicker. So overall, it was an interesting month for that. So we'll keep an eye on whether 794,000 sticks or whether that was just an anomaly that happened just based on the mix that sold in November. If we take a look at the year-to-date numbers now that we have November in, the sales volume, so if you add up all the dollars of the homes that sold, it was minus 6%. The number of units sold was minus 5.3%. So it works out to be, I think, almost 100 less houses. And the overall average price, though, wasn't affected as much. It's down 0.9% or 1% versus 2024. And we'll keep an eye on that. It's interesting to see that the dollars and units are down, but the average price is holding. And it simply talks to the resilience of the Guelph real estate market. Looking to 2026, based on what we're seeing so far at the end of this year and what we personally have planned coming up for next year, based on what clients have said to us already, it's going to be a busy spring. And there is going to be a lot of inventory, and we need buyers to show up too, because if buyers show up and there are a lot of listings, we will continue on a balanced market. But if there are a lot of listings and buyers don't show up, well, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where prices will decline pretty darn quick. And I suspect we're going to end up somewhere in the middle. Beth and I, in our 2026 predictions, anticipated that next year will be down 1 to 3% on the average price, but up in transactions. So more activity will happen, but we anticipate for a variety of reasons. You can go back and listen to that episode or read about it if you want. But for a variety of reasons, we believe that prices will decline on an average basis because a lot more of the lower priced inventory will sell next year. So take a look at that if you want to read up on it. But I think we're pretty consistent with what you're hearing in other parts of the GTA, that overall activity is going to increase just because rates are lower, prices are starting to get a little bit lower, and buyers are coming in to pick up that stuff. And if they can get a good deal based on prior years, maybe it'll get better, I don't know. But if they can get a deal based on prior years, they're going to jump back in the market. Thank you to everyone who has downloaded this podcast. We hit a record number of downloads last week, and I think we're getting close to 500 or so in total. So thank you for listening. Reach out if you have any questions or anything you want us to cover, but otherwise we will see you at about mid-month, depending on how the volume is. If it's really light, we might hold off until the end of the year, but we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.